Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. My name is Knives Monroe. Today's episode is brought to you by SavageStock.net. My good friend Luke Neumann runs and operates SavageStock.net, and the content that he's created and curated for the website has been used by some of the world's largest companies like Adobe, DJI, Panasonic, Samsung. So if you're a filmmaker, your videos are incomplete without the Hollywood quality and the affordable 100% royalty-free content that is on SavageStock.net. 100% royalty-free, 8K footage, 4K footage, HDR footage. Almost every single clip is available in HDR upon request. So visit SavageStock.net and get some royalty-free stock footage for your videos. You know your YouTube is completely incomplete without Savage stock footage. Get yours today. Thank you very much for listening. You're going to love my guest, Luke Neumann. Let's just get right into the show.
And get sad and stuff.
Welcome to the show. This is Knives Monroe, and with me today is Luke Neumann. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thank you, Knives.
Dude, thanks for making it on the show. I kind of wanted to start just by saying you and me had been wanting to do this for a few months, but it was just never in the cards for me. My life is complete chaos, man. And are you comfortable with me saying real briefly like the exchange that we had?
Yeah.
You know, I told you just the absolute truth, and I was like, dude, my self-esteem hasn't really been there lately.
Yeah.
There are some days I don't know how I get out of the car. You know, there are just a couple of days ago, I was at the store. I couldn't pick shoes. I couldn't buy shoes. I need some. I just was there at the store for 2 hours, and I was like, nah, I can't do this. And I left, and my son, who's 13, was like, I'll help you. We went back, and he picked them out for me. I was like, I couldn't do it. So doing a podcast, I just wanted the environment to be perfect. I wanted it to be perfect. And I'll tell you right now, it's not even perfect now. But you just being so understanding and being like, hey, man, I've been there. You know, that accountability really meant a lot to me. Most people would be like, man, fuck this guy. You know, so I really appreciate you, you know, holding me accountable, and it means a lot, and I'm glad that we're able to do this, man. I don't want to geek out, but in a weird way, and don't take this the wrong way. First, let me ask you, how many birthdays have you had?
Have I? 35.
You're 35. Okay, so we're almost the same generation. I'm 31.
Yeah.
So don't take this the wrong way, but I kind of grew up with your YouTube channel, you know?
Yeah.
I came into age, like, you know, watching your YouTube stuff since, I think, 2010, to be quite honest.
Yeah, you're OG.
Yeah, a little bit. I just celebrated my 12 years on YouTube a couple weeks ago, so, you know, shit, it's funny. But I, in preparation for this, studied everything that was out there on you, so I know whatever's open source. And there's a lot of water I don't want to tread. There's a lot of stuff I don't want to get into. But just for the listeners who may not be familiar with you, you have a way bigger following than I do, so I doubt that's the case. But why don't you tell us what your backstory is, where you come from, and what you're all about?
Yeah. So I'm from Oregon. I was homeschooled, grew up in the country, like, you know, mid 80s. We didn't have cable. We had, like, you know, just two channels, like ABC, CBS. So, like, movies for me were kind of like, they were like a treat. You know, when I'd get to see a movie, it would be something I'd really cherish because I didn't get to watch all that much stuff. And growing up homeschooled, like in the middle of nowhere, not really in the middle of nowhere, but, you know, out in the country for sure. You know, my imagination was kind of just like let loose. And so just kind of being in my own head, which is great for a filmmaker, but as you get older, you kind of realize, like, it's not a great character trait. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like how you were saying of just, like, not being in a good headspace. It's like, I do think that is something most creative people should at least have some understanding of. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, like, to be creative, it is kind of like a prerequisite is to be in your own head and to kind of, like, come up with ideas, or just naturally we're kind of in our own heads more than people that aren't creative all the time. So, you know, my parents got a VHS camera And at that point, it was kind of like I just started messing around, started like doing some stop motion stuff, just making videos with my younger sister, Hannah. And it was always kind of one of those things that I never, and maybe it's just because where I grew up, but never considered it to be a career. It was always just kind of one of those things like, oh yeah, I kind of do that for fun, but I would never, like, when there was career day in high school, that was never an option.
Mm-hmm.
It was always like, oh, I'm just going to do what my dad did, or, and both my parents were creative too. My mom is a writer. My dad has played guitar his entire life. So, it's kind of in the blood, and it was instilled in me from an early age. But it wasn't until like college that I was kind of going just for a basic, engineering computer degree that,
coding,
I
right?
just, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't get far enough to like specify. I was just taking like the prerequisites and doing.
Be honest. How many semesters did you go to college?
You'd have to add up, because like I'd take 2 classes one semester and work, and then I would ditch one, and then so probably all in all I went to maybe total like half a year or a year,
mm-hmm.
spread out over like 3 years.
Wow. That's the old college try, all right.
Huh?
That's giving it the old college try.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was just a community college, so it was like, but I did take one business class that I actually was super engaged in, and I feel like that helped me more than almost anything else I ever learned in school. Was like one basic business class in college. Like I was totally interested in it, and I didn't realize until later how it's kind of like, that's a very good thing to go to school for.
What did you get out of it? What's one thing that you can say that you took from it that was applicable?
It's been a while, but like I kind of just remember some of the concepts of like, I seem to remember one thing was like, one of the problems you had to work out was, okay, you're selling ice cream, and there's 2 competing ice cream shops. One of them is selling ice cream at $1 a scoop, and they get 1,000 customers. The other one's selling them at $10, and they're getting 100. So like each are profiting the same amount, but is there a fine line in there where you can charge a little bit more than the $1, but still keep the 1,000 cut? You know what I mean? So it's like that kind of applies to everything, and to me. Again, I guess it's just sort of ignited like oh, I can make money any way I want, really. Like I don't need to go to school and work for a company. I don't need to have a job. I can kind of be creative in how I make a living. And that maybe that's what it actually, maybe that's what it ignited, is that idea, because I had never considered starting a business or doing your own thing as a way to make money.
That's something, man. That's not nothing for sure. I mean, I had to reverse engineer a lot of things business-wise. I'm still not the cutthroat, ruthless business person that I want to be. It's really hard for me to ask to get paid, and like, when you put out an invoice and you send that reminder like, hey, this is due, it still feels a little cringy for me. I don't know why, but it's good that you got that out of it, man. And it's interesting. I kind of just want to stop you. I know you're going with your origin, but it kind of surprised me in a way. I don't know why, that you're leading, what you're all about, your origin, your backstory, with your filmmaking creative identity. Like, would you say that's a huge part of you? I don't want to assume so, but that's really all I know about you. Like, you kind of led with that. Sorry, can you repeat just like what did you say? So was the first thing that you noticed? Yeah, the first thing I noticed with what you were telling me, you were homeschooled and movies were a bit of a treat, but you started talking about the creative mind. Yeah. So I guess you must have been creative at a very young age. Like you're leading with that. Most people that I talk to, this isn't a strictly creative podcast. It is, and That's the baggage that I bring to the table when I talk to musicians and filmmakers and different kinds of people.
Yeah.
But would you say that's like how you identify as a filmmaker or as a creative? Like first, would you say? Maybe not today. Maybe now it's more like a father or husband. But
right. But like, yeah, I mean, definitely as far as what I like about film, because film is a weird creative outlet, I've always thought, because it requires so much technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like as far as how to operate a camera and all this stuff, like a painter doesn't really need to deal with all of that stuff. They can kind of just reside and just kind of bask in the creative, like they can just sit in the creative part of your mind and just operate.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas film, I've always felt like I need to constantly juggle between technical and creative.
You've always felt that way.
Yeah, and just because it's like I've wanted, like I love the creative side is like what I love the most, but the technical side, when I first started doing it, I spent no time learning the technical side, and so it was always like, why can't I get my stuff to look like acceptable? That was my only goal with kind of like going down the technical side of filmmaking, was like I just want it to be passable. I don't want it to be something that holds the creative part of it back.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a pretty long process just to learn the technical side of film and learn it well enough that it was second nature and I didn't need to think about it that much. And like, you could be out filming and I might spend 5 minutes of an 8-hour shoot day on the technical side, just because it's second nature. Like I know the camera, I know what I'm doing well enough that I'm not spending any mental energy on it. And so like I think that the creative part of my brain was definitely assisted by being homeschooled and kind of just like out in the woods, out in nature in Oregon.
Would you say that you're an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh, definitely introvert. But I mean, being homeschooled too is like, you know, social skills, like I had to work on them definitely as I got to school. Well, and I think that's kind of why I didn't do well in school. Like I did okay, but when I finally got to school, I went in like fourth grade. So it was homeschool up to fourth grade, went for fourth grade, didn't like it,
mm-hmm.
and then was homeschooled fifth, sixth, and seventh, and then went back at eighth through, you know, senior year.
Wow.
And at eighth grade, I just found that like my number one goal was to like fit in. And, you know,
of course. I have a son who's going into eighth grade. I mean, I know all about that life.
Yeah. And all I cared about was like the social thing, because I was like, oh, it's such a huge weakness for me that like I didn't care about school. I just cared about like making friends, making people laugh. Like I was kind of a class clown type. And, you know, so I definitely came in introverted, but had to exercise like the extrovert muscle. And I, you know, spent most of my high school years just doing that, like really not being an introvert. And then it was weird, like, you know, going into mid-20s, definitely extrovert the whole time. And then going to film and being self-employed, all of a sudden it's a little more introvert. So it's kind of just a battle all the time. Introvert, extrovert, introvert, extrovert.
Do you still struggle with that? Is it a battle now?
I kind of just compare it to like working out. If I'm out doing stuff, if I'm out socializing, if I'm, you know, doing it day to day, it's no problem. But if I'm editing and I'm kind of just like doing my own thing in my own head for a week or two at a time, then I find, you know, I go out and I stumble on my words, or I go out, it's like, oh shit, like haven't done this in a bit, you know? So it's kind of just like
this is so
out,
important, you know, for people to hear. It really is, because I think, you know, you're not going to like this, but you're an icon in the indie filmmaking community, not just YouTube, in the indie filmmaking world. Like I put you up there with the Freddie W's and the Xavier Dolans and all these, you know, even high art guys, like the Donald Glovers. I put you up there with the Lena Dunham. Say what you will about her, but I really do.
On.
No, 100%. No smoke. Just in terms of impact, and also, I mean, you're a better filmmaker than the guys that I mentioned. That's for sure. The attention
Well, thanks,
to detail,
man.
you know, I caught up with Dust God. I've been waiting for that to come out. It took a while. We'll talk more about that. But, you know, I'm just like the symmetry, the composition, the shots, the audio, the performances. I'm like, this guy has everything. It's a little discouraging. So to actually, you know, people like me who are observers, pedestrians, passerbys, look at you, we put you on a pedestal. And it's good to actually hear you be like, yeah, after weeks of editing, I'm like, how do I get back into the swing of things? I mean, that's me too. Anytime I go out, I force myself to go out. And I'm like, oh, this is fun. I never regret going out.
Yeah.
I never regret going to an open mic or some sort of adventure. But it's...
Do you do that?
I try. I try really, really hard.
Yeah.
People think, because of the exterior, we live like such a curated life and perception is reality. People think, oh, wow, he must be... They hear this podcast and they think it must be easy for him to have conversations. But
no,
when I'm out of my element, like I can't really talk about much other than pop culture, film. Like that's about it. You talk about politics and stuff and I'm out.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so to actually hear you say that is huge. I don't think anybody would believe it. And truth be told, what you told me on Instagram, so everybody knows, it all goes down in the DM. That's a fact. When you were like, hey, man, I feel like that sometimes. I feel you. I was like, you?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. I was like, he's just being nice, such a nice dude. But to actually hear this, I didn't know you were homeschooled. As much dirt that I tried to dig, I didn't know that. So I appreciate you saying that. I must have missed that along the way. But, I mean, you took that homeschool life and you brought it into your DIY mentality. I mean, you've just been self-teaching since the get.
For sure. And I think, you know, homeschooling to me, it's like, it's a double-edged sword. I probably won't homeschool my kids, but just because, you know, I'm not knocking it. I'm saying like there's a balance and I can see it being really hard to know what your kid needs when they need it. And my parents somehow walked that line really well, but you know, you can go too far into the introvert side of things and that's like, I mean, I'm not going to knock homeschool kids, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Kind of, sort of. I never really met anybody. You're like the first person I ever met who was actually homeschooled. Yeah. It's not really common where I come from.
I can kind of walk around and just like see a kid and go like, they're homeschooled.
Somebody told me recently that they can walk around and know a kid who was raised by his grandparents. I was like, whoa, I don't have that skill.
I don't know if I could spot that. But
that's so particular.
The homeschool thing to me is like, it's just the social side. It's like they just haven't had the social, workout that is high school or that is school. But they have this really unique gift of maybe being super creative in certain ways. So I'm not knocking homeschool at all. And I think I had the perfect amount of it for me. Mm-hmm. Just because it cultivated like creativity, kind of being in my own head. And then I got out of it right when I needed like a bunch of social stuff, you know, right when I hit 13 or whatever.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Self-taught, man. I kind of had you figured out when it comes to that, but I had no idea you were homeschooled. That's actually really insightful. Wow. Did you ever have a moment where you're like, oh, I'm a filmmaker. That's why I am the way that I am. An aha moment?
I mean, I made films and video for fun pretty much from
the get
10, 11 up through like I thought I'd stop in high school. I thought like, nah, I'm not gonna be doing that in high school. And then Pete and I,
happy birthday, Pete.
What was that?
I said happy birthday, Pete.
You keep cutting out. Sorry.
I'm sorry, man. It's his birthday today, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Happy birthday, Petro.
Pete. Yeah. But, you know, we would still get together and make movies. And up until, you know, I was like 20, kind of half pursuing making films for fun. I think one day my dad was just like kind of just tired of paying for college that I wasn't going to. Mm-hmm. You know, because I mean, he was fronting the bill for the classes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know, I'm kind of tired of failing at this. And I know you are. And he was kind of like, well, what if you did something you actually wanted to do? And and just kind of getting to that mind frame of like, well, I mean, I guess if it came down to what I wanted to do versus what I thought was the right thing to do, you know what I mean? Like, what's the smart career choice? But, it's kind of just a talk with my dad going like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do films? And I was like, well, hell yeah. And he was like, well, do it. And so it's just kind of one of those moments of like, I didn't realize, okay, like, I guess I can pursue that. I never even thought about it. Didn't know how to go about pursuing it. Because my thought, and this was a different time, but my thought was like, well, that means I have to move to LA.
Yeah.
Like that was just the first thought that came into my head. Like, I guess I'm moving to LA.
How old were you and what year was this?
Probably like 20. So, 2004. And so, the DSLR stuff was just kind of starting, but it was way out of my price range. So I actually met my wife, Marika. I was still working kind of like a job, just packing up materials and putting them into a tote, sending them to shipping. So just kind of your average like warehouse job. Met her there, and we just kind of, instantly hit it off. Got engaged while we were still working there, and then we each got fired and got unemployment. And I actually got fired. Like I injured my back playing basketball, and I couldn't do my job because my job required me being on my feet walking around all day, and I had a herniated disc. So like I mean, it's a pretty painful injury, especially like right when it first happens.
Of course. And
I could barely walk, and they fired me they didn't want to give me unemployment, and so I kind of like fought it. Got unemployment, so used that 2 months or whatever, like that I had some time to teach myself video. So I just started, it was kind of just like a break, but also kind of got injured, which wasn't great, but also got paid to kind of just like recoup. So I use that time to kind of teach myself. And this would be just like, this is almost before YouTube. So this would be, I don't know if you remember those articles where it was just like, they were like on a blog, but it was, how to do this. Here's the software. Like back then, the tutorials that we know of now on YouTube were all in blog
forums. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a little bit harder to kind of like find the information that you needed.
Of course.
Just from like I'm starting from this point, I need to know how to turn on the camera. Right around that time, like trying to figure out what to do with camera. Then I went to my wife and I both went to a local TV station. Like they had some classes, and if you took the classes, then you could use their camera gear. And they actually taught you just basic cinematography, which was really good. And it was taught by a guy that now is doing some cool stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of like the robots. They're called motorized precision.
I haven't.
Yeah, they're like camera robots that can move super fast. They're like the robots that you see that produce cars. Like on an assembly line at Ford, they have those robots. But the guy that started that company actually way back when was teaching me how to use a camera at a local TV station. But learned how to do that and then got to use their gear for free. And so we kind of made that work, and we'd borrow the gear to like start shooting weddings. So that was our start. Is Marika would do photography at weddings, and I would do the video using free gear that we got to rent out from a local TV station. And then right around then is like the T2i came out, and that was just within our budget range. So we got that, and we're still like the plan at that point was like just make a living. Like, we just have to make enough to live off of. And so I think at one point I just decided to like upload a tutorial to YouTube. And it got a bunch of views and likes and comments and stuff. And I was like, like, okay, people people liked learning that thing. And I only put it up because I thought it was something that I had to scour the forums for and teach myself. And I was like, well, that's bullshit. Like I might as well just condense all of this and put it into a video, make it easier for people to find. So the YouTube thing kind of started from that, and is definitely a product of luck and getting in early, I would say. Yeah. But directly from the start, it was kind of like, oh, there's something here with YouTube. I have no clue what it is. And I don't even think there was monetization at that point. Like you couldn't even make money. So it was just kind of like, oh, it's definitely not helping pay the bills at all. But I guess I'll do it just because it's kind of helping other people figure this stuff out. And yeah, that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, man. It's funny. The T2Y, it's what started everything. Same thing for me. I saw a YouTube video for someone that I want to interview on this podcast too. He's a photographer, videographer named Cody Weber. And I just saw, when YouTube, I remember when it went from 480p to 720. Yeah. And I saw this video that was filmed on a 7D. And I was like, what? Yeah. And the T2I came out and everybody was calling it the 7D Junior. Yeah. And so I had to get it. I was working at McDonald's in 2010. I was 22, 21, something like that. Okay. Yeah. And I saved up like 5 paychecks and I bought the T2I. I just didn't cash my checks and I finally just bought a kit off of eBay, whatever. I got it in and I was like, why doesn't my footage look like that? I didn't know anything about focal length, shutter speed, aperture, depth of field. I didn't know anything. I was just like, why doesn't it look like that? So that was a very rude awakening. But the T2Y was the democratization of high definition, quote unquote, cinematic video for YouTubers, for sure. I don't care what anybody says. It totally was. It was the gateway drug. Yep. And I often see now in forums or, various, gear porn or photography, fetishism videos, and just all that, how it is. Yeah. I often see people be like, what kind of camera should I buy? And the truth is, man, nothing is going to make them feel as good as that T2I made me feel in 2010. Nothing. I tell them, get a T2I. You can get one for $140. Yeah. Master that and then graduate to a GH5. Like if you really care about this. And the truth is, the modern iPhone is better than the T2I probably nowadays. For sure. But man, that did change the game, and I'm very romantic about the Canon T2i. I still have it, and I love it to death. Absolutely. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely I haven't romanticized about it for a while, but it'll hold a special place in my heart for sure. If as much as a camera can, but it just because people might say, "Oh, the Canon 5D is what started it," but it was that was way out. That was $2,500. So
for sure. Now we're gonna start losing. We're gonna start losing your average listener who is just this sounds like white noise to them. Yeah. But just so they know, look, we're filmmakers. The truth is, the camera does matter, but a camera is just a tool. It's just a hammer. Yeah. And so everything looks like a nail with whatever camera you get. I know that. I think you know that too. And I remember a video that you made, once again, this was 2010, 11. It just stuck with me. Yeah. I probably only saw it once, but it stuck with me forever. You had said, and maybe you don't stand by it now, but it just really stood out from all the other content that was out there. You said, use a kit lens. The lens doesn't really matter. Yeah. And I needed to hear that. And I was like, well, look at this guy's product. It's amazing. So much love and detail went into your work. You really maximized YouTube at that time, and I could see that you were cutting your teeth. I got a fanboy a little bit. I think it's is it called the Brothers McCormick? The
McCormick Brothers.
That is one of my all-time just favorite YouTube, just non-context. I show it to people. It is so funny. I don't know if it's supposed to be. But it's so funny. I love that video. I love the music. It looks like ADR to me, but it was amazing. I remember the Black Magic Lantern, all that stuff. I was so into it at the time. Yeah. I was trying to find a video because Pete posted on Facebook today, hey, send me something that reminds you of me. And I was trying to find the life of Pete Dryden that Xbox like Madden video. I could not find it. Apparently, it doesn't exist.
Let me see if I can find it for you.
That is my favorite. That's probably my favorite. It was like DOD 3632 or something.
Yep.
Was that the right number?
3032.
I was close. It was that. It was like on that, and that was a good era, man. Like you guys were so inspiring. I just wanted to be just like you. Truth is, I thought the T2I would fill my void. I just wanted friends.
Oh,
I didn't find my Marika Claire. I didn't find her till 2012. You know.
Yeah.
But if I probably didn't need to spend all that money. I was just trying to fill a void. I don't know if you can relate to that, but.
No, I mean, a lot of people always said, like, oh, you know, like, I could do that if I had Marika and Pete. And I was like, yeah, but like that, like, you know what I mean? Like,
hey, but the truth is, where would you be without them?
Exactly. I mean, my thing was like, okay, that's basically saying to me, like, if I could have Marika and Pete, I could do that. It's like, yeah, but like Marika and Pete took a long time it's like a friendship. It's a like, of course, you can't just go out and grab a Pete and a Marika.
Yeah, they're not growing on trees.
You know what I mean? It's like, what do you expect me to say there? Like, oh, well, I guess go out and find a Pete. I guess they're a dime a dozen. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what?
That's a fact. That's a fact. No, that's an appropriate response for sure. Yeah, send me that video. Just put it on here, and I'll get it, and I'll put it in the show notes because people need to watch it. It was so funny, but there was something kind of like just cinematic about it too. I was like, damn, even just for punchlines, these guys are going all out.
And that one was just spur of the moment. I think one night Pete and I were just playing video games. We're like, let's like, because we were actually probably playing video games, just yelling at each other, and we're like, let's just film this because this is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And so
I just remember it was like some line that Pete was like 500 yards rushing, well, for the whole season, but or whatever it was, man, it was so funny. But I love what you guys were doing. Since we kind of got here organically. Yeah. You know, I listened to a lot of your stuff that's out there, some podcasts and interviews, and it goes so in depth about camera stuff, and I can talk about that, but the truth is, like, you got to be exhausted about that stuff by now. Yeah. So if we get into that, that's whatever. I don't really have any questions. And the truth is, like, I get those questions too. What camera should I buy? Or how did you get that shot? And the truth is, I always lie to people when I say it was my iPhone, and they believe it. So it's all relative. It's all relative. But since we're on that note, I wanted to ask you about the current state of YouTube, filmmaking, photography world. You've seen the trends come and go. There was a boom in 2009, 10, 11. It was hot. It was white hot, and you were there for it. And you guys are still culturally relevant. Now, this isn't a knock to Ryan Connolly. I thanked both Luke Neumann and Ryan Connolly in my special things on my first feature film. And you guys are in my special credits. So I got a lot of respect for Ryan Connolly. But for Film Riot, no disrespect to those guys, and I'm just calling a spade, those guys have done a lot for the DIY world, but their films and their short films and their features and all that haven't really contributed much to the culture, from my perspective. Just one man's 2 cents. Right. The fact that, I don't know if you guys refer to yourselves to the Three Tremors, that's just how I remember you. Yeah. But you, Pete, Marika, what you guys are doing with Savage Stock, with Neumann Films, everything, like, how do you guys remain relevant? How do you know what to make content about? Why do you care after all these years?
Yeah. Truth is, I kind of don't. Well, I don't care. I don't care about, like, the grind anymore. Like,
define the grind.
Like, expanding YouTube, like growing on YouTube. I just.
So when did you? And what did you do about it?
When did I stop caring?
When did you care? What were you producing? Why were you producing it? And how long did that last?
Well, like probably 4 years ago or something, I signed with one of those. They're like agencies. They're basically like, they're talent agencies, but for YouTube channels.
You got burned, it sounds like.
Yeah, and they kind of, they gave suggestions, and they said, well, this is the kind of stuff people like. Like, if you do stuff based on video games, that always does really well. And
you drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and I tried to kind of like incorporate that while not selling my soul, like because that's always been something to me. It's like I've always had a pretty hard time doing stuff that I don't want to do, that I kind of think is lame or stupid or what, like the traditional like YouTube video of just action or just whatever YouTube is. It's like I can't stand it. And so it's always been this.
People need to hear this.
Well,
they do.
Yeah.
And they need to hear it from you because you're like a locker room leader.
Well, I would say, like, okay, you said the relevance thing. It's like definitely at a certain point, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I just got kind of fed up and just like I deleted our Facebook page.
Oh, my.
I every single tutorial that we had ever made, I turned into like a paid rental.
Wow.
Because I was just kind of like, I'm done answering people's questions about cameras. I'm done. I didn't even like the kind of thing. Like, I don't even like what I'm doing. Like, I don't like filming tutorials. And it wasn't that I don't like sharing information. Like, I love sharing information. I honestly love, like, teaching people. Like, when people ask me questions in person that they don't know how to do something with a camera, I'm just like, boo, like, I love it. But to kind of be known as like, well, it's the tutorial guy, and to get lumped in with like, that's your career.
Sure.
Like that's not what I set out to do when I decided to do this, right? Like what I set out to do was be in the creative mode.
That's right.
Because that's what I found fun. And so I just sort of found myself like, I'm spending most of my time in tech mode, and I don't like tech mode. Mm-hmm. I'm decent at it, but that doesn't mean it's what I love doing. So I continued to do it because it's like, well, you kind of paint yourself into a corner, and that's how you're making money and providing income for like your family, right? So you can't just stop. Like you can, but realistically, it's like, what, you're just gonna stop what's making you money and go do something else? Like, you know what I mean? You can do it, but
for those listening who haven't walked a mile in those shoes and haven't been in that position, you might think, wow, that's real, easy for you to say, right? Like, I think I could pivot, that's what life is or whatever. But, truly, I can only imagine if I was in those shoes, and I don't know where you stand with, and I don't want to get all Christian-y on you, but I don't know where you stand with religion and God and everything. But I meditate often, and I try to have conversations with God. And, I often thank him for, I'm happy it didn't happen for me in 2010.
Yeah.
I would have been one of those guys, like when the Logan Paul thing happened, I think that's his name.
Oof, yeah.
When that happened, I was like, dude, that could have happened to me.
Oh, yeah.
I could have been sucked in and sucked down the rabbit hole and would have lost sense of all reality and done it for the Vine or done it for the gram or whatever. And I had a lot of empathy for that kid at the end of the day because he is a kid.
Yeah.
And we made him, essentially, So I'm happy that I really started getting, not to make this about me, but I really started getting success in my late 20s, early 30s, where I already had a family. I already had close enough friends to keep me normal and humble.
Yep.
And I had my priorities and my values and my virtues. And so I'm very lucky for that, And hearing you say this, I just have to emphasize this. It's not what I expected, but in a weird way, I kind of did, because you don't go back to what you love and tell stories like Dust God unless you love the game.
Right. Yeah. And to me, Dust God was kind of like, it just became a point of like, can I make it work while doing what I want to do? To like I don't have to do tutorials. Like what I want to do is make movies. And so it's like, YouTube's my avenue. It's the avenue I've chosen. And I'm not going to pivot because it's doing well, right? Like I've found in life, it's not good to burn bridges. Like I did that with Facebook, and it was like, I regret that because it was just a stupid, immature move on my part. And I've wanted to do that so many times with YouTube. Like, just delete the channel. I'm done.
Did you have a big following on Facebook at the time?
Yeah, there's probably like 30,000. But and it was, it wasn't so much the numbers. It was just like, it was a very healthy community. Like I'd post something and a bunch of people would, respond. It was a solid community, and I just axed it. Mm-hmm. And so Yeah, like with YouTube, it's kind of been one of those like, how can I keep doing it while also, be a responsible father and adult and make smart financial decisions. Again, like the business side of things. Like I just started to like that at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
While also, being more selective and like, I think that's where we're at now is if we're going to do a story or if we're going to do like Dust God, for instance, like Dust God has a lot of like themes and that I'm pretty passionate about like right now.
I need to ask you. First of all, it sounds like you guys, I don't know when you wrapped, but this has been years in the making. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we stopped about 2 years ago and then I just sat on it.
It seems like something that you do.
Yeah.
Because I'm still waiting for the third episode of The Beacon.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get that a lot. But I did want to ask you, I saw the description on YouTube of Dust God because I was like, who wrote this? But it doesn't say who it's written by.
I mean, I wrote. It's like, how do you define write if you didn't actually write a script? But like,
there had to have been a script. That dialogue is so tight and funny.
No, that's just how Pete and I. That's why Pete's in every movie we do is because
Marika as well.
Ad-lib.
Because she had some great one-liners. Well, she has the best dialogue.
Marika, that was a script.
And who wrote that?
I wrote that.
Give yourself some credit because that's an amazing skill. That's a bankable skill, and you should pat yourself on the back for that. You guys don't give yourself enough credit for writing. I'm sure a lot of it is ad-libbed or whatever, but give yourself some credit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty much anytime you see me and Pete, it's ad-lib with, like, the idea of there's bullet points. It's like, well, this is the story. We got to hit on these things.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, let's figure out. I always compare it to music. It's like there's bands that they just structure everything. They have sheet music in front of, and then there's bands that just get together, like, and just jam. And you can find good stuff in those jams. And I've always been that way with filming. Even, like, I never do shot lists. I do scripts, but they're more of, like, one-page kind of story outlines.
Yeah, beat sheets.
Yeah, and then, from that kind of figure out characters as we go. Like, kind of like with Dust God, it's like we just bought the costumes. We bought, I think we bought 3 different costume types and then had Pete and his wife, Jamie, over for just, like, dinner and some wine. And this is how weird our interactions are, but it's like we had dinner and wine. That was like, "Okay, Pete, go try on these 3 outfits." And he'd go into the bathroom and come out, and we'd kind of judge it based on how much we laughed.
Gotcha.
So he'd come out with one, and we're kind of like, I don't know. And then he came out with the one that we ended up using. We're just busting up laughing, and he's already into character. Like, him being in the outfit gets him into character, so he's already kind of coming up with a voice and stuff. And then, so it's like, okay, this is a character right here. It's forming right before our eyes, and then the next step would be like, all right, let's go out with the camera and let's just film kind of like this guy in a location. Just kind of like, it's almost more like a photo shoot.
Interesting.
To where it's like, let's just kind of get the camera, see how he looks on camera, get him doing different stuff. And we were out doing that, and we were just driving through the country, and we saw a big dust devil tearing through, like, this farm, this field, and we both looked at each other and just stopped, and we both ran out there. I had the camera, and he was just running through the dust devil, like, flipping it off, and it was this total random moment, but it was kind of set up with, like, the character and just the theme of farming and kind of lower class, Caucasians.
That's a nice way to put it. I call them gummos, thanks to Pete, who introduced me to that film.
That's the area we come from. Is like, it's just very real to Pete and I, like, that type of person. This story, and from just from, like, one shot is we had the character out there. He's running through a dust devil, and I just kind of watched that on repeat once I got home, and I was kind of like, okay, this, and then the story started to form. But it was almost from an ad-lib character and, like, test day place that the story formed.
That's actually, wow, you just walked me through like one of your short films in your process. I would have never guessed. It looks so meticulous and composed and structured and just tight.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm actually, this is liberating for me because I work in a similar way. Like, I don't shot list. It's really rare. I want to find it there. I film performances in one take, and I just want to move on. Like, I just want the actor to be prepared and do their thing and just nail it in one. Like, you only have, in real life, you only have one shot at everything, you know? So, to hear this side of you, I'm kind of surprised. Sorry, that's my phone. Let me turn that fucker off. I had it on airplane mode, but whatever.
Something came through.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I think it's because of the Mac. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
it's all good.
I'm gonna leave it on airplane mode.
I'm gonna leave it in there.
Okay.
So that's revelatory to me to actually hear you, and thanks for walking me through that process. I never would have guessed.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we have always done it. Like from, like you were saying, McCormick. That's how that started. That was go get costume. Like what the first idea from McCormick was just like, what about drunk Irish guys?
Nailed it.
And we're like, okay, let's just go get some costumes. We were always out exploring Oregon, so it's like, what about this location? What about that location? And then, Pete and I, we have 10, 15 years worth of ad lib experience. Like, that's just how we used to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Different characters, just ad libbing everything. So it's, a lot of people are very uncomfortable in that scenario.
That's true.
So, you can't really bring that to like any other shoot, or at the very least, like, you gotta let people know, like, this is how we're doing it. And it's just also how people work. Like Marika, she does so much better when she has a script. Like when she has a script, she goes through it, she learns it, and then she starts to go like, well, what hand gestures can I do? Like, how can I say this line to make it different? And it's, that's how most actors kind of work. So, yeah,
that's awesome. Do you like directing actors outside of the Three Tremors?
I do. I find that it's fun kind of getting to know what makes the person tick and what makes them, like, comfortable in front of the camera, because that's ultimately what I always strive for, is like, I want you to be comfortable so that you're delivering realism. You know what I mean? And sometimes I find that it's actually easier to work with people that don't have a lot of experience.
I agree with that.
Like,
they're more malleable. They're less self-conscious.
Right. And the people that have a lot of experience acting, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to play this scene like this because this scene reminds me of this, and this is how I played it that one time. And, they kind of come with all these built-in ideas, which is fine. But, as somebody has such a weird process, it's kind of hard to work with people that have a preconceived notion of what it's going to be when I don't even know what it's going to be. At the end of the day, like, we're out there filming, and it's just, who knows what's going to come out of it.
Are you consuming any content?
Very little. And I never really, like I was saying,
What about music?
Music, yeah.
What do you listen to? Like, what has to be, what's like in your, I don't know, Spotify playlist, or what's like the top 10 revolving acts that you just have to listen to?
I mean, I'm into kind of like more chill house electronic stuff now, because early on I used to be into heavy metal, and then,
like, who were your guys?
Tool,
of course,
one of my favorite bands. Mudvayne back in the day, Soulfly.
Yeah, that's your gen.
Yeah, and it took a while to figure out, like, music really affects my mood, and
right.
I can listen to metal now, like when I'm working out or when I just want to get riled up. Yeah. But for the most part, like, I like the mood that the more electronic, chill stuff puts me into. So I'm consuming that with a purpose of, like, this is the mindset I want to be in right now. And so people like Toro y Moi, there's I'm trying to think of some other artists. It's weird because we always just put on one artist and then go through the shuffle and just like all the songs. I don't know a lot of the artists, but that's
Like on Pandora?
Yeah. So that's kind of like, that's the genre I'm in right now. I used to, I was into cinematic stuff for a while, like orchestral musical scores, but that didn't last too long. I find that they're not that fun to listen to.
Sure. Yeah, you can't really work out to like James Horner.
No, but I mean, there's a time and a place for it. Like if I'm driving around looking at stuff, it works, and it sets a mood. But I'm kind of all over the place now. Like,
what about podcasts
jazz
or YouTube? Like, what do you have on the background when you eat at home?
We are watching right now. I mean, we watch maybe one episode a night or every other night of like something. So right now we're watching Stiesel, which is it's a show on Netflix about rabbis in Jerusalem. Subtitles and everything, but like it's what I like about it is that it doesn't work hard to get you to feel any emotion, which, you watch American stuff and like, especially the Netflix stuff that's produced in America. And it's like, it's trying so hard to get you to be sad. It's trying so hard to get you like, oh, this part's intense. You got to feel scared. Oh, this part's sad. You got to feel really sad right here. And, I find shows that are produced outside of America, they don't beat you over the head with which emotion you're supposed to feel.
Interesting.
Almost like a laugh track, like the problems people have with a laugh track. It's, you're supposed to laugh right now.
Right.
You can find that same thing in almost every other thing you consume in American media. It's like you're supposed to feel sad right now, and the music is the laugh track, right?
That's right.
So this one, it's like sad stuff happens, but there's no sad music playing. It's kind of like, a character gets sick and dies, and it's kind of like, it's up to you how to feel. Like they don't tell you how to feel with the music, and they're not overly emotional. I don't know what the term would be for that. Like melodrama? I don't know. But
melodrama, manipulative almost.
Yeah, but like right now I'm totally in love with the type of media that lets me figure out the emotions of the scene.
When was the last time you were affected by a movie that moved you the way you Raising Arizona did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Raising Arizona. When was the last time?
Yeah, when was the last time a movie hit you like that?
Hit me. Let me think. Tree of Life, but that's been a while. Let me think. That was in the, that was in the 2010s.
Yeah.
Man. I don't consume many movies anymore.
Is that you or is that the culture?
It's tough because it's like, well, I mean, the last time I went to a movie theater was probably 3 years ago.
Wow.
And that might just be, I don't know. Maybe it's harder for me to consume it now that I kind of do it in a sense.
Interesting.
Right? But I don't consciously think that would be subconscious, if anything. But
how many kids do you have, Luke?
We have one.
You have one. Brand new baby, right?
She's like 18 months.
Do you like her?
Oh, I love her.
How has she affected your creative work-life balance? You can't say she hasn't.
No, she definitely has. But here's the thing: is like Marika does a really good job, and we both agreed on this early on. Of like Talia and the parental side, like she wants to shoulder a lot of that load, and that's not to say like I'm hands off. Like I'm very hands on because I work from home, so like I'm always around. I'm always doing stuff. I'm always taking breaks and playing and doing stuff. But it's like we worked it out. It was definitely a team effort to go like, well, you can try to get 8 hours in. So it's affected it in the way of like we have to work harder to make it work. But the work side of things actually hasn't changed that much. As far as like my perception of reality, like a 180.
In what way?
I just like, okay, so the process of having a kid, and I remember like I watched her come out, right?
Of course.
And to me, that was like, I don't know if there's a better, like, I don't know if there's a crazier experience that you can have in life. Like, maybe watching someone die. I don't like, but that's a totally different experience. Like, this was, I can't even explain it. Like, because she kind of had some complications early on. And so I was worried the whole time. Like, I was just freaking out, but not showing it. And then she came out, but she looked really gray. Like, I thought something's wrong.
Did she come out crying?
No, well, she came out, and there was like a split second where my stomach just sank because she looked gray and lifeless. And I was just like, oh no. And then she took her first breath, and instantly she got color in her skin, and her body kind of like shot to life in a way that was.
It was like she activated.
Yeah, it was like it looked like a robot. Like that's all. To me, I was like, oh, a robot just turned on. And she started crying, and I just sat down in the chair. I was like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
And I just said that over and over, and I looked at all the doctors, and I was like, you do this every day? I'm like, it's the single most, like, crazy experience, just circle of life coming into full focus in my brain all at once. So a total, like, life-changing event, and then everything after, just amazing. Like, you know, because I used to operate under this misconception that kids come in with personality traits kind of baked in, and I don't know if I believe that anymore.
Like the whole nature versus nurture thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they maybe come in, you know, they obviously come in with physical traits baked in, like, you know, the size of their brain or the size, you know, and you can change some of that. But, like, emotional and personality traits, like, I think it's just watching her soak up every single thing we do, from, like, the most mundane thing, how I twirl a pencil in my hand.
Yeah.
All, like, everything she learns and everything she's going to be is from watching us. And so, like, there's
no
pressure in that. Yeah, you're right. And so it's like, you know, bad traits that I have that I don't want to pass on, I got to kind of, like, figure out. And, you know, it's just crazy. It definitely makes you be more decisive in, like, are you going to be a better person, or are you going to let that slide? But you're definitely thinking about it. Whereas before, you know, you didn't think about any of that stuff nearly as much.
How has it affected your gaming life?
My gaming life.
You're a gamer.
Video games?
Yeah.
A lot less. I mean, I can still find time to squeeze it. Like, 'cause she goes to bed early, so I can find time late at night.
Do you make it a priority?
I don't make it a priority actively, but I feel like it's good for me mentally. So because like I said, I don't intake a lot of other media. So for me, it is kind of just an escape and a way to kind of mentally just get out for a bit. And yeah, so I don't actively try to make time for it, but, you know, it's probably a bi-daily thing that I spend some time on later at night. And I think it's good. Yeah,
I got my kids the Nintendo Switch, and my 5-year-old picked it up real fast. So pretty soon you're going to be playing games with her.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Wow, man. That's amazing. That's something I've kind of always wanted to ask you, because as soon as I saw that, you know, Marika was expecting and you guys had a kid, I was like, oh, things are going to change forever. And I wonder how that's going to affect his work. Like, it's going to make him more sensitive.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to make him softer and more. I mean, you're already self-aware, but I knew it was going to wake something up in you, and it sounds like it did.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm definitely more sensitive to, like, the plight of the female.
100%.
For sure.
100%.
And I think that's hard, just because it's like, unless you, which definitely should affect the art, right? Like,
of course.
Whereas before, it's like I only had a male point of view, and everybody can say, like, oh, I empathize and I understand. It's like you don't really understand being a woman. No man understands being what a female goes through, right? Like, we can say we try and we can say we do, but I think having a daughter is about the closest thing for me.
Wow.
Personally, everybody's different, but for me, it's like having a daughter is like, well, I instantly like, oh shit, like I don't want you to be treated this way. So like,
yep.
There's questions of like, do you raise her to be more girly, or is that something you actively try and not do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
In my
like,
culture, they're very big on piercing the baby's ears, like in the first 8 months of her life. And I never did that. You know, it was very ingrained in my culture. And I was like, I'm going to let her decide that.
Right.
You know, that's just something I never thought about. But when it came my turn, I was like, I kind of need her consent on this one. She's going to figure that out. And still to this day, she doesn't want to do it. So, you know.
Yeah. Good thing you didn't.
I'm happy I didn't. Yeah. And I just never really was that conscientious about somebody else's body per se.
I know.
It's really interesting. Do you see yourself having another one?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
I mean, just because it's like we've talked to enough people that were only children.
Yeah.
And you know, we considered stopping because we're just like, I don't want to spend time with another kid. Like we like her too much.
Of course.
But you know, talking to only children, they're like, no, do it, because as a kid, you don't want to spend all your time with two grown-ups. Like, it's not fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's
I mean, we'll try. I mean, I'm not, you know, who knows what can happen, but we definitely want to have another one.
Well, good luck. I believe in you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's cool, man. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you, Luke.
Thank you. How many do you have, by the way?
I have a 13-year-old stepson who's going to be 14 in November, and living with basically a 14-year-old sucks. It's terrible. I mean, you remember being 14. Like, he's not, you know, going through, you know, I was listening to, like, Marilyn Manson, Tool, stuff like that, you know, like, I went through that kind of phase, and I don't see anything, like, he's like a Fortniter, you know, and all that, but I love him to death. He's great. He keeps me humble for sure, but, you know, he doesn't want to be around adults all day either.
No.
And I got a 5-year-old girl who, I mean, she's my hero. Like, I've just... You know, you learn real quick that they get their self-esteem from you. And little girls get it from their daddy, you know, at the end of the day. Yeah. And being responsible for that is my greatest responsibility. And it's my first title, for sure, is being a father. It's my number one title. Everything else comes second, as you know. But
for sure.
I'm so grateful for them. And, man, you and Marika have spent at least 10 years together.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
Mazel tov. What's the secret? I got 6 years.
Man, I would say learning to look in the mirror, right? Like, learning to, like, because it's like when you first start and you're married, generally it's like, no, this is about you. This is about you. This is about you. You know, if we get in an argument, it's like, what did I do? Can I do it better? And then over time, it's like the universe naturally pushes people to be more selfish as they get older. I don't know what it is, but you get complacent. You get, you know, you just kind of get in your routine and you lose sight of it. And I think the hardest thing is to just like remember to put yourself in their shoes and to put yourself in other people's shoes of like, why is you get in an argument or you get in a fight, and it's like, it's so easy to go like, yeah, but I'm mad because you did this. And it's like, yeah, but what did you do? Mm-hmm. Like, what did you do to get this here? Because you didn't go 0 to 100 for nothing, you know, like,
that's right.
She didn't go 0 to 100 for nothing. It's like you did something to escalate it, and then she reciprocated, escalated it, and then you did. And that's generally the progression for like 95% of the fights or disagreements in relationships. So it's like understanding that you play an equal part and just trying to not lose sight of that, because it's naturally wants to go away in your mind, you know?
Of course.
So
I feel like, you know, do you guys fight?
No, we it's one of those things like we
truthfully.
No. I've been in relationships that have fought, and
Mhm.
so it's definitely like the most it is kind of like a disagreement,
Of course.
and even that's very rare. It's like, and everybody always says like, oh, that's a bad thing in relationships. It's like I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Like we just work together in a way that's non-confrontational, which is
When you
good.
guys disagree, how often is she actually right?
50%.
It's pretty good.
I mean, that would be the hope.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm
For a
happy to hear
healthy
that.
relationship, you'd hope I wasn't wrong. One party wasn't wrong 100% of the time, because that wouldn't be good.
I feel like I'm wrong 75, 80 most of the time. But that's why,
Yeah.
she's like my consigliere. Like, I'm like, what do I
Right.
do here? And she's like this. And she's usually right.
Right. And I do feel like just relationships on the whole, it's like I always kind of boil it down to, you are who you are, and it's hard to change kind of big personality traits. You can work on them, but I think the key to finding a good relationship is going like, where are you at on the spectrum? And you need to find somebody that's like, let's say you're 65% alpha male, right?
Sure.
It's like, well, then you should probably find somebody that's this much percentage on the other side so they can pull you back to the middle.
Yeah.
Right. And they can just perfectly balance the shit that you do wrong or the shit that you do right, accentuate the stuff that you do right and help kind of pull back the stuff that you do wrong.
That's the key.
Yeah.
You guys are so compatible, or so it appears. And I mean, she's a creative person as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
for sure. She's
people that tend to think like each other tend to like each other.
For sure. And I've often thought like, man, if I had mistakenly married somebody that was like, oh, career woman, right? Like I would have never been able to keep doing it.
Mm.
No way. Because it's like, if she's bringing in like a consistent income and I'm just farting around on YouTube, it's like that realistically would end in divorce or me having to stop after about a year.
Wow.
That's realistically.
True. That's realistic.
Yeah.
So I heard who I believe was your little girl in the background. So I don't want to keep too much of your time, and I appreciate it. But I just want to kind of come full circle and end on because I feel like I didn't let you finish, what the current state of YouTube is. And like I said, it was hot in the heyday, the DSLR boom, and the digital boom. And I kind of feel like it made a comeback in the past 2-3 years. And it's hot again, and everybody's a photographer, everybody's a videographer, and everybody wants to do that, and tutorials are back in vogue and all that shit. So where do you stand in the eye of the hurricane? Do you care? And
no.
So tell me more about that.
So to me right now, the current trend is super annoying.
And how would you define it in your words?
Huh?
How would you define the current trend in your own words?
I think it's very.
I want to know if we have the same internet.
Whoa! So what is the current trend I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I would say just the trend of like travel videos and morph cuts and oh my god, like the tutorials or the vlogs where people just unrealistically use their hands because that's what they've been told. Like, if you're going to be a YouTube personality, you got to be moving your hands 24/7. And so they're, like once I noticed that, it's like I cannot get it out of my head.
Interesting. Great. Now I'm going to think about it. I've never thought about it until now.
But their hands are just always going like, "Oh, guys, what's up?" And they're just doing shit with their hands that's not natural. It's almost like they're having to tell themselves, "Keep those hands moving, or else you're not going to be a real YouTuber."
Interesting.
But I think like what I don't like about it is it's almost like an assembly line. It's like everybody that's popping up and the content that's coming out is like following a blueprint of like, it's got to be this length. It's got to be this thumbnail. You've got to use your hands when you talk. you got to get music from Music Bed, bro. And it's like, it's all the same songs and all the same content, talking into the camera with a wide angle lens. And like, you can just see it. It's like they all went to the same film school. And there's no originality. And there's no, almost like, I mean, it's hard. Like I actually tried doing a consistent upload schedule and doing a little bit of that. It's hard. Like it does take creativity. I'm not going to say it doesn't take creativity, because it's actually really hard work, and it's like I just kind of can see through it for what it is, and it's just a play to make money, which is fine. I have no problems with anybody making a living doing YouTube, but like from where I stand, it's like I've always been kind of hesitant to follow the trend just to get views. Like I want to get views. I want to get, I'd like to join the channel and get paid. But
surely by now you know the hacks to get 1 million views if you wanted to.
Right.
Surely.
And so, to me, it's like I'd almost rather make a defiant statement about like, no, keep making shit that you stand behind, maybe that isn't following any blueprint. And so going back to like the style of just winging it and being like a garage band that just kind of jams, like I feel like if you're not using the YouTube channel for that, then what are you doing on YouTube? Like YouTube is where you can do whatever you want. So it should be kind of not following a blueprint. And so, to me, it's just kind of like, I'm going to stick to my guns and just do fun stuff, do short films and the prerequisite now, like I said, is it needs to have some kind of message that I really stand behind. And otherwise I won't even like think about doing it. So like Dust God, like I said, it's got a message that I really care about. But it's not what people want to see. It's not the normal thing on YouTube. And so it doesn't get a lot of views. And I'm at the point now where like, I don't care. To me, it's more about just sticking to your guns and being not following the blueprint or the trend.
Wow. I got to tell you, Luke, that's why I've loved you peripherally, and that's why I had a feeling that we were going to get along. I don't know if it's because you got that punk rock gene in you that's just like, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to play my music my way. Right. I see a lot of young kids, that look at the Casey Neistats and look at people like that, and they're like, I want to be that too. And I understand that, there's a lot of people who want to be like me, who want to be like Luke Neumann as well, and who followed in those footsteps. And if they're truly in it to win it, if they're long gamers, I mean, they'll still be here in 2030. They'll still be doing it. I've seen a lot of people come and go, and I'm sure you have too. Yeah. But your relevance in 2019, No Film School just put out that thing, right? Yeah. Top 10, most relevant filmmakers of right now.
I was blown away, by the way.
And you know what? You deserve to be higher on the list.
No.
100%. And it's just one man's 2 cents. But, you guys are still whacking away at it. I love what you guys do. I subscribe and I hit the bell, and I'm always there to watch every single thing that you guys do. I've bought the presets. I'm completely bought in. I love you guys, man. Every single one of you. You guys make it look so effortless. Damn, man. Is there any note? Like, I hope you got something out of this. Is there anything that you want to leave on? Any advice? There's those typical, what would you tell Luke when 10-year-old Luke? But, if you had a thesis to leave people that's some sort of practical application, what would you want to leave people with?
I mean, I would just say, like, again, I don't know your audience. I don't know if your audience is more like traditional filmmakers, people that are, you know what I mean? Like, because for them, I don't have any advice. My advice is, I guess, more for like YouTube people that are wanting to do stuff on YouTube, because that's where the space I've been in for the past few years, and that's kind of what I know. But my thing would be like, I do what I do and just kind of like go against the trends, because I do expect a shift, right? Like we saw a shift back when, the DSLR thing, and then it kind of went away, and then it came back as this. Like I do definitely think the current trend is about done. And I have no clue where it'll go next, but it won't be like if you are putting all of your efforts into being the next Casey Neistat or whatever, like you're not going. It's already done. It's already happened. Casey Neistat is already here, and that trend has been around for like what 1 or 2 years, and people are already like viewers are probably already getting a little tired of it. And as soon as the viewers tired of it, it's going to shift. And so I kind of think like doing your own thing, finding what makes you tick creatively, and focusing on that versus worrying about the trends is like if you're just doing your own thing, you'll kind of ebb and flow with the trend. You won't probably be super successful, but you'll at least survive the eventual like tidal wave of trend changes. You know what I mean?
If you're good enough and if you love this enough, for sure.
Right.
Because you still got to be talented. You still got to take a kick in the mouth. I mean, I've had my share of failures, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh, yeah. More than my successes.
Is that a fact?
Yo, definitely.
You know what? We'll save that for the next episode then. We'll do a part 2. And I definitely want to get into some of your failures and things like that, because that's something that I wish was in the lexicon and the conversation a lot more was, oh, here's this time I got screwed over. Or here's this time, you know, this was a deal that wasn't honorable. Or here's this time, you know, not to throw anybody under the bus, but.
No, I could leave names out, but yeah, there's countless.
100%, man. Luke, thank you so much for coming on my little podcast. It means a lot, for holding me accountable. I wouldn't be the filmmaker that I am today without you. And YouTube is better because you and the 3 Tremors exist. And I want to see the conclusion to Dust God. So I hope you have an ending filmed and in the can. Otherwise, you're just teasing me, bro. You're just teasing me.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
Dude, any single time we got to do it again. I appreciate you.
For sure, man.
Peace.
Later.